Welcome back to Small Changes, Big Shifts. I'm Dr. Michelle Robin. Hope you're having a great spring. As you know, it's been a pretty big month. I hope you enjoyed our 6-week series around turning 60 and generational change. And today is going to also knock your socks off because we're talking about women and kids and happiness. And that's right up our jam, right, Bailey?
Absolutely. No better way to end a reflective time and then going into spring with new life, new energy. And I'm excited to have our guest, Dr. Zippy, on the show today.
Yeah, so Dr. Zippy is a happiness consultant and transformational coach who translates positive psychology research into practical tools for lasting change. She is a friend of Amy Cole, who's helped us with our kindness initiative. I've known Amy, 20 years, because you know me, I'm a people collector. And so, Dr. Zippy, welcome to our family.
Thank you. I'm so happy and grateful to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Well, I love your work around inner home for happiness. And I've got a perspective of what I think that means, but I really want to hear from you. What's the inner home for happiness, and why do so many people feel like they're just renting in their own lives?
I love that question. So, this question actually hits because the metaphor is so real. I say, when you rent a place, you don't paint the walls, you don't plant anything in the yard, you're just passing through, waiting for something to feel permanent, like, right? You can tell, actually, in neighborhoods, you can tell where people are renting and people who own the place. And that's exactly how most people experience their own lives. That's what I've seen. Like, they're guests in their own story. And here, this is why I created this framework, the joy framework, which, it comes in right away in this conversation where just to say so that we can know when I talk about joy, because I do happiness, I used an acronym joy because it's easier. So we talk about she has joy. So J usually stands for joyful self-mastery. And this is about recognizing that happiness is not something, self-mastery is happiness is not something that happens to you. It's something you build, you generate it. So internally, it's your architecture, it's basically your values, your sense of safety, your ability to regulate when life gets hard. And then when they talk about so that the joy is the joyful self-mastery, we talk a lot about on how to self-manage. And then O stands for organizational vitality. And that reminds us, when you don't have that internal foundation, it trickles out. When you're thinking about a house, you need to have a good foundation. So when you don't have that internal foundation, it trickles out. Your relationships suffer. Your team, if you're working in a team, your team suffer. Your household suffers. Everything around you reflects the state of your inner home, of your foundation. And then why, when I talk about why for the JOY, is yielding meaning. So this is the whole point. People feel like they're renting because they're living someone else's blueprint, someone else's definition of success. And you cannot yield meaning from a life that you never designed it yourself. So you're living, that was not designed for you. You're living on default. So I'm always, like, in the classes I teach, I talk about living by design, designing life for yourself, not just, living by default. So the inner home for happiness is really the invitation to stop being a guest in your own life and finally moving into your own home.
Bailey, I'm going to stay with this for just a second. When I think about well-being, which we teach, and well-being in the dictionary means happy, it's hard to be happy when you're not at home in your body because you have headaches or belly aches or depression or anxiety, you're not sleeping. So this is why I think Amy connected us so we can have a thoughtful conversation. And I love the acronym JOY. And so thank you for sharing that. Before Bailey asks you her question, because I'm giving her a hard time already in the show, what turned you on to this, and how did you find your own inner joy and your own happiness?
Oh, well, that's another excellent question. Like, I always, by disposition, I'm generally very, chirpy and whatever, zippy. It just felt like that's what I'm supposed to be. So, but I realized at some point, like, I had gotten my happiness was based on circumstances. I had gotten the degrees, I had gotten a job, I gotten my wonderful husband, I'd gotten wonderful babies, but I didn't feel aligned. I did not feel that thing that I should be, like, when you look at your resume, you're like, wow, that's pretty good. But then you don't feel it. I did not feel happy. And that's when I went to a school to learn about happiness, because I was like, why is it seems so elusive? I was waiting for this job and I got this job and I was so excited. And then after I started the job, and then a few months later, I was already feeling, you know. So that's when I learned in my study, like, happiness, when you say happy, you're happy for a good reason. It's just happy because of the circumstance. I want to be able to be in a space where I'm not waiting for things to make me happy, but I actually generate happiness. And science has found out that has cracked that code. You can actually create happiness. You can generate happiness. And that for me was revolutionary. So that's what I wanted to be. I did not want to be happy because of the circumstances. I wanted to be, it doesn't matter. I can be in this space and happy. When I say happy, I'm not talking about happy walking around like la 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 la, but I'm happy in walking, having, just feeling aligned and an inner peace and an inner way of being, where it didn't matter what came my way. Whatever came my way, I'm able to regulate myself back to that space of where I'm calm, I'm regulated, I'm able to make decisions well, because we know from science, when you're not feeling safe, when you're not regulated, you can't make great decisions. So I wanted to be in a space where I'm very self-aware of what's going on in my body, so that I can decide what to be and not wait for things to decide how I will be. So I don't know how much of him, but I use the analogy of a thermostat and a thermometer. Science has found out that happy people we all have a set point of happiness, right? Depending on however you show up, glass half empty, glass half full. So when they say you can raise your happiness by being, what you want to be is a thermometer. I mean, a thermostat. A thermometer, notice, is in the room and it reads the room and it becomes the room. If it's hot, the thermometer goes up. If it's cold, it goes down. So if you're in a place that is very high tense, volatile, you're also very high tense and volatile. But a thermometer, it reads the room, and if it's too hot, it brings the temperature down. And if it's too cold, it brings the temperature up. So that's what I desired to be. And that's what I was driving towards, where I don't have to behave, just when life throws a curveball, I don't have to be completely dysregulated. I can be able to regulate myself and come to a place where I'm able to make decisions. So that's what made me come into this space. So now I know, even from research, I mean, this is a skill. It's not something you just are. Nobody was born giggling or happy or feeling regulated. So this is an actual skill that now I help teach people how to notice, be self-aware, notice what you're noticing, and then from there be able to lean in towards the direction you want to be at.
I always amazed at the guests and how they find their way to us, but then also to hear you say what we believe so deeply, just in a different way, it was amazing. And so for me, just hearing that, I love the analogy of oftentimes people are living in somebody else's blueprint. And so while maybe on the outside, you should check the boxes of happiness, of I've had this accomplishment, I've done this, my kids are healthy, my husband's great, all of these things, but you still don't feel that deep internal alignment. And what you said is because you have to go within, because you're living maybe somebody else's blueprint. That doesn't mean that those things happening aren't good things and things to be grateful for and blessings in their own way. But if you don't really know who you are deep to your core, it's never going to have that fulfillment in the way that you just described it. And again, to our listeners, you hear Dr. Zippy, that's the path that she went down on her own, to say, okay, now what's next? And we're always encouraging our listeners to keep asking that question of, I've got good things, I've got bad things, whatever it may be. Just be curious about what's that next step. And so what common barriers in your work do you see are preventing people from fully feeling in alignment or at home in their own lives?
We could have a whole TED talk on this. Maybe I should. But let me bring it through again through the framework, because it maps it perfectly. I like using my framework because again, it marks it perfectly. So when I say self-mastery, joyful self-mastery side, I think the biggest barrier is identity confusion. People don't know who they are outside of what they do or who they serve. When, like, literally people just know who they are. I've been working with a lot of people who've been laid off, and people don't know who they are if their name is not attached to their organization. Like, I've worked with a lot of people in the last few years just who've been laid off. And it's so sad because I can tell identity was based on what they do and or who they served. And they built their whole sense of worth around output, and they've never been taught how to just be. So when I ask someone, who are you? I went for Rotary the other day and I was talking to this person, and she kept saying, oh, I'm the ex-wife of XYZ. It was somebody who's supposed to be a big person here in Detroit. And me, I don't know this person because I'm not even originally from here. But she kept saying that. And then she said, oh, and then my daughter, my sister, my niece is XYZ. And she named her. And I was like, okay, that's wonderful. But who are you? Like, she's found her identity by the people who she associates with. And I tried to have that conversation with her, and you could tell she was stuck. She did not know who she was, which was so unfortunate. And then when I talk about the organizational vitality side, that's, chronic stress and process trauma. That's a whole story by itself. Right now I work with first responders, I work with executives, and what I see across all of them is a nervous system that is on survival mode for so long. These people don't know how to rest. And when your body thinks rest is dangerous, I keep saying happiness literally feels unsafe. If you feel like, and I was that person too. I've grown up in a place where rest is looked at shamefully. I can't just say, oh, I'm so tired, I'll go take a nap. So this is a whole new way of being for me. But taking a nap felt like I'd take a nap, but I'd be checking to hear whether my mom's voice is there. So happiness, as I said, so that's one of the things, chronic stress and process trauma for the O. And then when I talk about yielding meaning, remember I talked where you borrow people's definitions of success. So you're chasing a life someone else has drawn up for you, wondering why you feel empty when you get there, because really it was never your life. It was never your destination. So I think those are some of the common barriers. If I just use from the JOY acronym, I mean, we could go on and on about this, but I think those three, just when I talk about those three right now, they really mark people feel homeless in their own lives.
Yeah, the identity piece I think really hits home for me, because for me personally, and I've shared on the show, my identity was rooted in Bailey the athlete. And then I graduated and was no longer doing sports. And so, okay, who am I now? And then I very much found myself quickly falling into Bailey the mother and fell into that role. And I say I'm coming out of my cave, right? My kids are 4 and 2. And so I feel like as I'm entering back into the world, I'm now like, well, what do I like to do? Not things with my kids, not things that an athlete would do, but just me and myself, and really how do I want to show up, and what does that identity piece look like? And so, we're getting into that summertime, Mother's Day is going to be celebrated this month. What would you say to the moms out there who are trying to find their identity? What piece of encouragement or advice would you give to kind of dial in and find your home within yourself?
Oh, I think that one advice I keep saying is notice what you're noticing. Like, I want people to learn to notice themselves and to listen, to listen to themselves and notice, if no one else is telling you who to be, who are you? So I notice that and just sit with that, lean with that. And I know it is a hard thing. I teach a class on self-mastery, self-leadership at the university. And that has been the hardest class for people, because people want formulas. But when you're told, just sit with yourself and notice, I keep saying, notice what you're noticing. Notice your feet. How do they feel? Notice your toes. Notice your elbow. Notice your heart. Like, just that, it starts bringing you back to yourself. And instead of what can I do? Notice who are you being? Just notice. I think that if we can just sit in by ourselves and notice what we are noticing about ourselves, then we'll be able to, and sitting with that, then we can be able to make decisions about ourselves. Yes, that is all I can say. There's a lot that can be done, but I feel like that is the foundation. The foundation, because once you start noticing, you're able to start taking responsibility of yourself. Because if you don't notice, we'll complain, we'll blame, we'll shame, all those other things come because you're not so self-aware. Yeah.
That word notice is powerful. And, I used to use that word a lot, and I'm not using it as much lately. I'm not sure you've heard me talk about that word much in the last few years, Bailey. But that's what we're asking people to do. We're asking them to tune into their own well-being, whether it's food, whether it's people, whether it's thoughts, whether it's music. What do you notice when you are disconnected? I was talking recently with a client who is in the middle of an anxiety attack. And she was on the other side of it by the time I got her called back. And I said, tell me, what moment did you feel yourself? And then now we have this panic attack, let's say 45 minutes later. What happened in that gap? And what stories are you telling yourself, or what actually happens? So I really, really love the word notice. It makes me so happy that you're sharing it about how to regulate. And, as a wellness practitioner and a chiropractor, especially, we talk about nervous system regulation. And how do you do that? Whether it's one thing I do is I gargle, I listen to podcasts, books, things like that to keep my inside healthy so that my outside is not reacting to the craziness. So that's what I heard you say. So thank you for using the word notice. And Bailey, have you heard me talk about the word notice much?
I feel like we always say the body's talking, are you listening? And we're always encouraging people to question everything. And so with the things that are popping up in your life, but I haven't heard you say notice lately, but I love the framework that you're bringing, Dr. Zippy. And again, I think you're just saying what we believe so deeply in a different way that I know is going to resonate with somebody today that needed to hear it, because I just feel like oftentimes in life, these lessons will continue to show up for you in different ways, and they'll sound different and they'll look different until you pick up on what you're supposed to take away from that. It's going to keep showing up in your life. And so I think you're on our show today as well to reiterate what we believe in and give that different perspective of just at a level of awareness. And I have never heard, feeling homeless within yourself, like not feeling like you have a place, but man, do I see it all the time. People that are just, they're just walking and it's lights on, no one's home kind of thing, because they don't fully feel in alignment. And what you said that was really powerful is asking that question of not what can I do, but who can I be?
Yeah.
That really resonates, because I think we live in a world where we mark our self-worth off of accomplishments. And so we ask that question of what can I do instead of who can I be? And I can only assume that you are very intentional with, the people around you and how you're pouring into those. What are some of the things that you're intentionally hoping gets passed on to the next generation that you have worked on yourself?
Oh, I absolutely like this. I actually going to talk about it because I drop my kids to school every morning. I have twin girls, they are 12 years old. And every morning, our question is, who will you be? Who will you be today? Because we talk about having intention. If you walk around, people will decide who you'll be. But you want to be, who will you be today? And so most of the times the girls will be like, I'm loved. One child is called Amani, which means peace. The other one is praise. Sifa, it means praise. But she'll say, I'm loving kindness. That is who I be today. And so that's a practice I want. They do that. Like, we don't even think about it. We get into the car and the person says, I am whatever X, Y, Z. I mean, like I am love. I am brave. I kindness, so, and now they've done it so much that they know. And one thing we know is when you are that, it doesn't mean, especially when you say I am love, it doesn't mean now the day will be wonderful. It means you're given opportunities to be love. And that means, so you have to come back. So that's, they know they only have one word, say one word, who you be today. so that whatever is happening today, if life is throwing you a curveball, you know who you are. One of the things I say is we have the capacity to be what we want to be. Don't you decide what you want to be. Don't let anyone decide for you who to be. And you are your highest authority. If you tell yourself this is who you be, then be that. And it means life will throw things at you, but then how does love look like? So when they're picked in the evening, I'll ask, so you be love today, how did love look like? What does love look like? Then they'll say whatever love, what they did. And so that is a practice that we have to, like, I'm so happy and grateful that they get to do this, because I never had that. I was so busy complaining, blaming, and shaming for the longest time, which is what most people do. I can get it real quick now because I've done this work for so long. Like, even my girls will be like, Mom, are you complaining? That sounds like a complaint, So we watch because now we are becoming so self-aware. At the beginning of this work, when I started doing this work, we used to put $1 in a jar if you complain, blame, or shame. And then they don't have money. So any money that they're supposed to be getting, we put it in there. We say and then we'll donate it to the place for the animals. So now we start noticing a lot. Even me, if you detect an accent, I'm originally from Kenya. So I do not like and I live in Midwest, Detroit, north of Canada. So it's very cold. So you hear me complaining a lot. I used to complain a lot. Now I do not. Because they'll catch me on that. Mama, you're complaining, you know better. So now I get a heater, so I think that what I want people to know is we have the power to run our own lives. Like, this is your life. You're your highest authority. You get to choose and you get to decide how you want to live your life. And life, it doesn't mean circumstances are not coming through. But you know what we found out in the research? Only 10% of your happiness is from circumstances. Okay? 50% is from your genetic makeup. So that some people are just genetically predisposed to being happy and others predisposed to be unhappy. I mean, not unhappy, like more, glass half empty. But they found out, and this is a study because in the epigenetics, a study for twins. I like that study because I have twins and I'm in twin studies. They found out when they separated identical twins and put them in different environments, their genetic makeup changed. So 40% of our happiness is based on our habits and behaviors. And then 50% is on our genetic makeup. And we've seen that genetic makeup can change too. So only 10% of our happiness is from circumstances, but 90% of our happiness, of our well-being, and of our inner peace is fully responsible. We are fully responsible for that.
Shame, blame, complain. So to our listeners, if you're shaming yourself, shaming other people, complaining, blaming, I really want you to hear what Dr. Zippy is saying and take some responsibility back and take some steps to help you really embody your home so that you could be the thermostat and not the thermometer.
Yes.
And so notice when you're becoming the thermometer and figure out, is it because of certain foods I eat? Is it because I'm not getting enough sleep? Is it because I'm not exercising? Is it because I'm putting words in my mouth, words in my mind from somebody else that they didn't even say? So, Dr. Zippy, I love your conversation, especially as we're celebrating moms. And then we're taking these moms who are getting ready to have their kids home for the summer. And I'd love for them to spend the next few weeks, to our listeners who are moms, and you may be a mom, I'm a great auntie, I'm in my own life. I want to invite you to spend some time the next few weeks and possibly look up Dr. Zippy and check her out. What's the best way for them to do that?
On LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn.
Okay. So check out Dr. Zippy on LinkedIn and pick up a couple tools and add some new tools to your tool belt to help you be the person you want to be. And as I close the show, Dr. Zippy, I love your vibration. For those of you that are listening and you can't see, it's just a bright light, smile, bright eyes, just magnificent. But Dr. Zippy, you're making me think of one of my coaches and one of my, I'm going to air quote, moms, mentors, Dr. Janice Hughes. And she's doing something lovely this year. She sent out to some of her friends to write a letter to her about kind of the importance of our relationship so she can leave that for her kids and actually share it with her kids now while she's alive. You know, where a lot of us are in a transition where our parents are starting to shift to the other side. And I want to give a shout out to Janice and say, Janice, here's one thing that really ties into the show with Dr. Zippy, because people leave imprints and fingerprints on your life if you let them. And hopefully it's good imprints and you're not shaming, complaining, and blaming. But she said, Michelle, if you will be the person you want to be, you will do what you need to do to have what you want to have. And recently, Bailey and I were giving a talk to some corporate women, and people have an idea of what makes you not feel at home. A lot of people really know because they're noticing, but they may not take action. And some of that action is falling in love with the magnificence of how we're created and really controlling the inside world. I can't control the outside world, but I can control my inside world. And so, Dr. Zippy, great job sharing those principles today. You really tied right into our message and our theme. And Bailey, anything else you want to say to wrap up the show today?
No, I think this was a great show. And again, like I said, I think you bring a very different perspective and say it in a way that's going to resonate with our listeners at a deeper level. And to our listeners out there, I want you to know that, we have the honor of hearing stories like this weekly and daily in the work that we do. And there's always still something to learn. And so coming from two people who have been doing a show and practicing this and preaching this, Dr. Zippy brought some insight for us today. And so that's exactly why we put on this podcast. And we hope you keep coming back because everybody needs to hear it a different way, a different perspective, and sometimes somebody who has a similar experience that you can relate to. And so this has been a fun conversation. I'm going to say you and I are going to one day be twin moms together because I'm calling in my twins for 2027. Yes. And Dr. Robin's a twin. And so we've got all the twins here. So I'm going to take that energy. And I'm glad that you joined us today. And I'm grateful for the work that you're doing in your career, but also for the work that you're doing in your home for your kids and creating that generational change, because that's what it's all about. And that's what we're all here to do. And whether you're a mom out there or an aunt or a cousin or just a great coworker, we all have a responsibility to better this world for the next generation. And it starts with fixing what you've got in your inner home. So thank you for your time today.
To all of our listeners out there, hey, we'll chat real soon. Happy Mother's Day. Once again, enjoy whatever you're mothering, whether it's your pet, your kids, yourself. And Dr. Zippy, once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll chat with you real soon.